very good afternoon to you. Welcome to NTV at One. My name is Zainab Ismail. We are following up for you for a number of stories making headlines across the country. We'll be joining Kennedy Mureithi, who is at the Parliament buildings where the Central Bank Governor Patrick Njoroge is attending a meeting with the National Assembly Finance Committee. And still in Parliament, we also will be joining our reporter Sharon Baranga, where Education PS Belio Kipsang will also be who is also in Parliament, who is before the Committee on Education of implementation of the new curriculum, and also will be in Parliament as well, where the KQ proposal is happening. The Parliamentary Transport, Housing and Public Works Committee is grilling the Kenya Airways and Kenya Airports Authority officials over the controversial proposal to hand over operations of the JKIA to the Kenya Airways. But before we get into that, the National Assembly Finance Committee this morning met the Central Bank Governor Patrick Njoroge seeking a status report on the strict rules on money transactions that have irked members of Parliament, the national debt level and status of banks under receivership. NTV's Kennedy Mureithi now joins us live from Parliament with more details. Kennedy?
Well, Zainab, out of all those issues that you've actually mentioned, Parliament stuck, in specific the Committee on Finance stuck to one of them, and that is on the matter on the Section 33C of the finance of a bill that was introduced that is seeking to limit the amount of money that can be deposited or withdrawn. And with regards to this, Parliament seems to think that the regulations that were given out by the Central Bank of Kenya should now be brought to Parliament so that the regulations could be adopted into law so that they can be strengthened. That is according to Parliament. But what we've been able to see from what has been presented by the committee is that the Central Bank Governor, that is Patrick Njoroge, seems to be of the view that this law is unimplementable, and they've been really trying to find how to do it, but they cannot do it so far. But what came out of Parliament last week, and that is the mentality that the Central Bank of Kenya was coming to this committee with, is that Parliament wants to remove some of these regulations that have been put forth. And from that, it is from that premise that they were engaging this parliamentary committee. But the parliamentary committee seems to have changed tune today, and in their presentation and also in their tackling what the Central Bank Governor was trying to present before them, the parliamentarians say that no, we do not have a problem with the regulations that you've put forth, but the problem that we have right now is that you are putting forth regulations that cannot be used even if somebody is going to be, if somebody is going to be taken to court. These regulations are not going to stand the test of time. So their thinking is that these regulations should be brought before Parliament so that they can be adopted and they become law. But there's a push and pull with regards to this matter, with some of the members thinking that probably the CBK would have had a hand in this, in people going to court just to find the interpretation of this law. Because according to the CBK governor, right now what is happening is that there is a court case that is ongoing whereby they're trying to find the way forward with regards to this law that was passed by Parliament, but they're saying that even if this is going on, it is unimplementable. And this is the question that parliamentarians themselves are trying to find a way forward and a way through it. And that is what is causing so much trouble at this particular time. But there are some questions that have come out as the session was ending. And they're trying to ask why this is coming up at this particular time, and members of Parliament are reading mischief in it. Some of the questions that we have seen so far, and these questions, one of them came from the Alego Songa Member of Parliament, Samuel Atandi, where he is seeking from the CBK governor, what is this that you're saying is unimplementable? But the Central Bank governor was not given an opportunity to actually answer that question. Another one by Chris Omulele is that, are you sure that the regulations are in order? And also another one from Rahim Dawood, who is saying, what happens to the other laws? What precedent are you saying that you cannot follow what has already come out from Parliament? The thinking is that they should have implemented this law as it was, as they continue to seek opinion on what is unimplementable. But also the chairperson of that committee, that is Joseph Limo, is saying that you have indicated that are not implementable. And these things are really, it is a push and pull between the two, as what is coming out is that the two institutions are actually not trusting each other with regards to how this is going on. With regards to the CBK, they're saying that these regulations are really important because they are going to conform with international practice. What is the international practice? The international practice is saying that there's a cap of $10,000, which is equivalent of 1 million shillings in this country, and that has to stop at that particular point. Another factor is that they also need to make sure that the money that comes into this country is clean and is not going to be used to fund terror and all these other ills. So CBK still insists that these regulations must stay and must be there in place. And when members of parliament realize that they cannot circumvent this particular point, they came up with the fact that they only want these regulations to come to Parliament so that they are checked and also put into law. But the question is, if these regulations are brought to Parliament, is the CBK going to sit pretty, knowing that they are going to be passed as they are going to be brought, or some things are going to be introduced that are not very palatable to the country? But right now, this is what the CBK governor said when he was at the committee.
We did what we should have done, which is to appeal to the legal process. And that, I think, is according to the options that are available to us, and indeed also appreciating the responsibility of Parliament. As you know, we don't have an option of coming back to Parliament directly and sort of having that interaction. But now, of course, as we say, we will have that opportunity indirectly to cover other issues like the ones of refining the law and so forth. But I want to put it categorically that we did not choose to ignore the law.
And we'll have a full report later on in our subsequent bulletins, of course, by Kennedy Mureithi. Now, 7 suspects alleged to have conned Samia Africa chairman Naushad Merali 10 million shillings by mimicking President Uhuru Kenyatta's voice and pretending to sell land will know whether they will be detained by the police for 10 days when the court rules on the matter this afternoon. The 7 are Joseph Waswa, Duncan Mushai, Isaac Wajakeche, William Simiyu, David Luganya, Gilbert Kirunja and Anthony Wafula. It is alleged that they used a mobile number to call Samia Africa chairman Naushad Merali, asking him to facilitate the release of the money for the purchase of land while mimicking the voice of the president. They pretended the call was from State House in Nairobi. Police want the 7 suspects held at Muthaiga police station for 10 days in order to complete investigations.
Just hold on. Yes. If I read paragraph 2. Yes. Who is the complainant? Who is the complainant?
Set 49 1F.
Number 3. Number 4. They need.
Now, Muhoroni Member of Parliament James Onyango Koyo has welcomed the move by the National Environment Management Authority to shut down 2 plants at Kibos Sugar Company in Kisumu of alleged pollution of Lake Victoria. Kibos residents have been complaining of the dumping of toxic waste into the river, which has affected their livestock.
We are not going to allow people to die because some few people want to make money. We are not going to allow Kibos to make more money at the altar of killing people. That will not be allowed. People are annoyed. They are expecting their displacer. And those demonstrations, those expressions you are seeing are not going to stop. They're just not going to stop. And going around even trying to connive with some politicians is not going to be a solution. A solution is we'll be supposed to find a lasting solution, a mitigating factor towards the pollution of the river and the noise and the smokes that billow from the factories every day.
Now, the National Environment Management Authority has ordered the removal of asbestos roofing in government offices, schools and houses in Kirinyaga County. NEMA, which says asbestos roofing poses a health hazard, also says it is investigating toxic effluent from factories into rivers.
NEMA had issued a warning early this year against asbestos roofing in the county, with institutions still using the roofs to take action. The county commissioner says his office is working closely with the various heads of institutions to ensure action is taken.
If they are not following the law or following the plan as it was when they were proposing to put up their buildings, then we shall make a recommendation to the cabinet secretary, who will then follow up with the relevant agencies for enforcement.
NEMA has also warned factories in the area that release their waste into the water bodies, which poses another health risk to the residents. Helen Wanjohi, NTV.
And more than 200 households and schools in Nakuru's Kapkura's village will no longer have to walk long distance to fetch water. This is after the National Gender Affirmative Action Fund and the Office of the Woman Representative distributed 200 water storage tanks valued at more than 2 million shillings to the residents in readiness for the short rains. Kapkura's, which is in Nakuru West, is largely a dry area and has for a long time never had a reliable source of water for its residents. Children are often required to carry water to school.
Maji tukipata mahali tunaenda kupata maji tunapata, ukiletewa nyumbani na 20 bob, ukiendea wewe mwenyewe mahali inauzwa na 5 bob, na ni shida kwa sababu hata kuna wengine hawapati hiyo 20 bob ya kununua maji. Lakini sasa tukipewa matangi, kila mtu atakuwa anaezeka kwake.
Imekuwa ni changamoto kwa shule zetu hasa za Nakuru Town West kwa kukosa vifaa vya kuweka maji, kuhifadhi maji. Na tunashukuru sana siku ya leo kwamba tumeweza kupata tank za 6,000 liters.
Na hii matangi ya maji itasaidia kina mama kwa maji safi ya kukunywa, na hata wakati nyingine ya wanaweza kutumia kwa kuirrigate their small kitchen gardens. Unajua katika sehemu hii ya Kenya kuna mashule ambaye hawana uwezo yeyote ya kupata tangi ya kuhakikisha watoto wamepata, na kuna yale mashule wamepata na kuna wale hawajapata. Kwa hivyo tumeanza kuwapatia wale hawana tangi, alafu next time tutapanga tena tuwapatie zingine.
Now, Kirinyaga Women Representative Wangui Ngirishi has slammed the Ministry of Education on the recent proposal to arrest Higher Education Loans Board defaulters. Speaking in Kagio during the training for boda operators, Ngirishi said that many of the defaulters have no capacity to pay back the loans due to unemployment. She urged the government to come up with ways to bridge the gap on youth unemployment.
Wapatia vijana kazi, wakate hiyo 7 bilioni yao kutoka kwa hao vijana ambao hawana kazi, sababu hawajakataa kulipa, ni kwa sababu hawana. Wakipata kazi watalipa basi.
And university students in Kitui County have also slammed the education CS over her arrest help defaulters remarks. Speaking in Kitui, the students drawn from Kenyatta University, Kitui campus and Southeastern Kenya University called the CS's threat insensitive to the reality of youth unemployment. They now want the CS to withdraw the order.
I would like to request CS Amina Mohamed with our President, His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, first to kindly fulfill his promise of creating 1 million job opportunities for the youth.
Now, fake phones worth an estimated 3 million shillings have been confiscated in some shops along Nairobi's Tomboya Street by officials of the multi-agency team fighting illicit trade. Several people were arrested in the sting operation. And Alex Mwangi is live in the newsroom and will be giving us some more updates. Alex?
Yes, Zainab, there was a fake phones raid. Basically, it was a sting operation, and it was a multi-agency sting operation that was organized by, among others, the Anti-Counterfeit Agency, the Kenya Revenue Authority, as well as the Anti-Illicit Trade Agency. So these three agencies together were, as well as security agents, were involved in a sting operation earlier this morning. It was in the mid-morning, and in fact, we got information about this raid as soon as it had commenced, because some of these operations are meant to be done in a covert operation. One of the interesting things, the fact that they got phones worth 3 million shillings is quite interesting in that trade, even though the shops that were raided were quite few. There were not many because it was just a targeted raid. But illicit trade is a challenge to this country, and goods still continue to be brought into the country illegally through the border points, several border points, and it is a challenge to the revenue authorities as well. So this is an issue that is a drag on the economy as well. And one of the ways that these guys, the unscrupulous traders, have started to, a new method that they are using to sell fake phones is that they import phones that have a label of a different make, even a make that is not well known. But when the phones are brought and they get to the retail points, that is when they are slapped with, they are plastered with the labels such as Samsung, maybe Huawei, or even iPhones. So what happens is that for those people who might not know how these phones really look, they are duped into buying much cheaper phones. You find that a phone that is, say, 100,000 shillings being sold for something like 15,000 shillings or 20 or 30,000 shillings. So there's a double impact for this. One is to the customers themselves. They get a lower quality product. But then secondly, the government of Kenya also, you and I, we lose revenue because of these unscrupulous traders. So that is the illicit trade. And the illicit trade is what the government is fighting right now with a multi-agency task force. It's a fight that will still continue, Zainab, and we hope that progress will still continue being made. But once again, just to say that this was a targeted operation for just a few shops, not so many along Tomboya Street, and we are hoping that the operation will be widened to net even many more people. But the last thing that I would say about this sting operation is that we also noticed that some shops, just a few shops on the side of the street along Tomboya Street and also part of Moi Avenue, some of the shops that normally sell phones had closed shop because of this sting operation. Maybe they had got wind of it, but we know that it was just a targeted operation for just a few shops, and so there were those who are arrested and they've been taken to the police station to answer to charges. Back to you, Zainab.
All right, thank you so much, Alex Mwangi, there from the NTV newsroom, of course, giving us a brief on that sting operation that was happening today morning. We'll be getting a full report from Alex Mwangi later on as well in our subsequent bulletins. Now, rising cases of teenage pregnancies, early marriage and child labor continues to affect the girl child in Kilifi County. Now, more than 17,000 teenagers from the county got pregnant last year. According to a report by the county government, this has affected transition of girls to higher levels of education.
Local leaders in Kilifi County continue to raise concern over alarming rate of teenage pregnancies. The leaders accuse parents of failing in their responsibilities, peer pressure, exposure to negative content on social media as well as culture.
Utapata kwa asilimia kubwa kwamba watoto wengi ni wale ambao wanatoka familia za kimaskini. Kama kuna organization iko serious na kuaddress matters za girl child hapa Kilifi, kwanza ni wateremke chini kwa familia za wasichana, wateremke chini kwa jamii za wasichana. Watajua yale matatizo ambayo yako kule.
According to statistics confirmed by the county government, 17,850 girls were impregnated last year alone.
That's why we need to advise the county government of Kilifi, number one, to officially declare the early pregnancies here in Kilifi County as a disaster, number one. Secondly, all these girls who are affected their education is funded na waendelee mpaka wamalize masomo yao.
The association now wants the county government together with the Ministry of Education to intervene urgently and address the issue for a lasting solution. Fatma Bugu, NTV.
Now, the orange-fleshed sweet potato is gaining popularity among farmers in Western Kenya as the number of farmers growing it continues to rise. The International Potato Center is targeting to reach 35,000 farmers in Kisumu, Siaya and Homa Bay.
Maureen Aoko is among the farmers in Siaya County that have taken interest in the orange-fleshed sweet potato. She started growing them in 2017 and now she's a vine multiplier, growing seeds for farmers who want to take up orange-fleshed sweet potato farming.
Vitamu ni mzuri kwa sababu hata wanaochukua mbegu kwangu wanasema wanapata ina vitamin A, inasaidia watoto sana sana na wamama wajawazito.
With different forms of malnutrition affecting up to 400,000 children in arid and semi-arid regions of the country, the biofortified orange-fleshed sweet potato is being fronted as a superfood that can fix vitamin A and C deficiencies.
It can be integrated in commonly eaten foods within the rural setting, including the very basic commodities that most households vulnerable to vitamin A consume. I'm talking of things like bean stew, green crumb stew. You can put it in a mix of maize and beans, locally referred to as the nyoyo.
The International Potato Center is currently running a project in Siaya, Kisumu and Homa Bay counties, targeting more than 30,000 households to grow the potatoes.
Sweet potato seed is not available with the agrovets, and therefore we have to find a localized way to get the planting material available within the community.
Nilianza 2017, 2018, ambayo ni last year, nilikata mwezi wa 9, nikapata nilivuna gunia 250, nilipata 63,000. Alafu tena mwezi wa 12, tarehe kama 16 hadi 19 hapo pia nilivuna nilipata 37,000.
Orange-fleshed sweet potatoes mature within 4 to 6 months with potential maximum yield of 8 tons per acre. Besides being a drought-tolerant crop, the orange-fleshed sweet potato is said to be rich in vitamin A, a nutritional deficiency that many children under the age of 5 suffer from in Western Kenya. Zainab, Wandati, NTV.
All right, and in other news making headlines across our borders, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari